I never imagined this morning would feel like my world had collapsed. My phone buzzed with the HR email while I was sipping my black coffee, the bitter taste suddenly too sharp to swallow. Effective immediately termination decision final. I read the words over and over, my mind refusing to process them as reality. Fired. Just like that. No warning, no chance to explain. I slammed the laptop shut, the sound echoing through my tiny apartment, though it hardly seemed to matter. Nothing mattered, except Lena. I could still hear her laughter in my mind, the way it had cut through me like glass the day she'd texted me about celebrating with her friends while I stayed late at the office. I picked up my phone, typing her name, my fingers trembling. "Why, Lena? Why are you laughing? Don't you get what you've done?" My thumb hovered over the call button, then I deleted it. I didn't need her voice to confirm my humiliation. I remembered seeing her yesterday at the office party, smiling that fake, perfect smile as if nothing had ever happened. I had trusted her. I had believed her when she said, "We're in this together." And yet here I was, discarded. I drove to the office despite the knot in my stomach. Maybe I could salvage something. Maybe my supervisor would apologize, admit it was a mistake. I stepped into the lobby and felt every eye on me. Colleagues who once nodded in friendly acknowledgement now glanced at me with subtle pity or, worse, smug relief. "Heya, Mark," someone muttered. I didn't respond. I didn't have the energy to fake composure. I made my way to HR, the letter clutched in my hand like a lifeline I could barely hold. "You're here to see Mr. Whitman?" the receptionist asked, eyebrows raised. "Yes," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. When Whitman entered, I had imagined confrontation, perhaps anger, perhaps even tears. But the man stood there expressionless, calm as if he were merely waiting for an elevator. "Mark, I see you received our letter," he began, his tone almost conversational. "Yes. I don't understand. I've worked here for 7 years. I've exceeded targets, managed teams, delivered results. How can anyone just fire me without explanation?" Whitman shrugged. "Company decisions aren't always convenient. You'll receive your severance. That's all you're entitled to." I felt like the floor beneath me had crumbled. All I ever hear is company decisions. But you don't understand. You've known me. You've seen the work I've done. And yet you let her... My voice faltered, my chest tightening. Whitman didn't flinch. "Let her?" "Lena, she's been..." I stopped. I couldn't even say it aloud without my stomach twisting. Whitman nodded slowly. "Yes, Lena works here. She has her opinions. I'm sorry this is hard, Mark, but the decision is final." I felt my hands curl into fists. Final. I stormed out, the hallways suddenly oppressive, fluorescent lights harsh and unforgiving. Every laugh behind closed doors, every whisper, felt like it was aimed at me. I wanted to scream, to shake someone, anyone, into realizing what had happened. But no one could grasp it. No one. Later, at my favorite cafe, I sat alone, coffee cooling in front of me. I watched the barista move through the morning rush, customers chatting, laughing. A normal day for everyone but me. Lena's face flashed in my mind again, smug, victorious, unconcerned. I wanted to throw the cup. I picked up my phone and scrolled through messages I'd ignored all morning. Friends had noticed. "Are you okay, man?" From Daniel. "Heard what happened, shit. Sorry, bro." From Jordan. I typed nothing. I couldn't explain it. Not fully. They wouldn't understand that this wasn't just a job. It was the betrayal of trust, of intimacy with someone I loved who had once promised loyalty. Lena's laughter haunted me more than Whitman's indifference ever could. I remembered her words last week, flippant and careless. "You're so serious all the time. Lighten up, Mark. You're going to burn yourself out." And now she was laughing, free from consequence while I wrestled with humiliation. A part of me wanted to call her. Scream, demand answers, demand apologies I knew would never come. But another part, the part still smarting from 7 years of betrayal, recognized something. This wasn't over. Not yet. I left the cafe, walking the streets with no destination. The city buzzed around me, people oblivious to the internal chaos I carried. Every advertisement, every store window reflected a life I'd been building, now shattered. And yet, amid the anger and the despair, a seed of clarity began to take root. I can rebuild. I will rebuild. It wouldn't be today or tomorrow, but one day, I would be the one holding power, while Lena's laughter turned to tears. The thought brought a small, bitter smile to my face. A plan began forming, vague but tangible. Every slight, every humiliation, every mocking word would fuel me. I called Daniel. "Hey, you around?" "Need to talk," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "Of course. Where you at?" He replied. I gave him a location and hung up. I didn't need sympathy. I needed perspective. I needed someone to anchor me while I processed the betrayal. Sitting across from Daniel later, I barely looked at him. I don't know how they could do this. "Linesh just loft," I said, swallowing the bitterness in my throat. Daniel's jaw tightened. "People like that, they don't care. They take what they want. You can't let it break you, man. Not now. Not ever." "I feel broken," I admitted, voice low. "It's not just the job. It's everything. Trust, loyalty. I gave so much. And she didn't care." Daniel nodded, understanding. "Then use it. Let it fuel you. Not to destroy you, but to build something stronger. Don't waste it on anger alone. Think strategic. Long game." I stared into my coffee, letting the words sink in. Strategic. Long game. For the first time that day, I saw beyond the immediate humiliation. I saw possibility. Not redemption yet, not closure, but a path forward. Walking home later, I passed Lena's apartment building. The image of her laughing, the same laugh that had haunted me, flashed in my mind. And then, slowly, deliberately, I whispered to myself, "You think I'm done. You think this is over. You're wrong. This is just the beginning." The streets were quiet, the night enveloping me in solitude. But I was no longer just a victim. I was a man aware of every slight, every betrayal, every weakness, and I would use them. By the time I reached my apartment, the first sparks of a plan were forming in my mind. Every contact, every meeting, every interaction from this moment forward would be deliberate. I wouldn't be blindsided again. I wouldn't be humiliated again. I collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion mixing with determination. My phone buzzed again. More messages from friends. I ignored them. Tonight wasn't for comfort. Tonight was for clarity. Lena had laughed when I was fired. She had thought I would crumble forever. But the thought of that laughter fueled me more than despair ever could. And tomorrow I would start reclaiming everything she thought she could take from me. I woke to the sound of my alarm, but it felt like any other morning in this new void I was living in. The world outside continued as normal, oblivious to the collapse inside me. I stared at the ceiling, mind racing with Lena's laugh, the moment I'd been shown the truth, the humiliation, the betrayal. I reached for my phone. Hundreds of emails, messages, notifications. None mattered except one I hadn't read yet, a forwarded message from a colleague at work. The subject line alone made my chest tighten. "Mark, saw this today." I opened it. A screenshot of the company memo, my firing announcement. Lena had sent it to someone else with a message. I knew he couldn't handle it. Her words weren't just cruel, they were triumphant. My stomach turned. I called Daniel. "Hey," I said, voice hollow. "Mark, are you okay?" He asked cautiously. "I don't know. I can't stop thinking about her laughing. About everyone laughing. About everything," I admitted, swallowing hard. "Hey, listen. I know it feels like the world ended, but you're stronger than you realize." "I feel broken," I muttered. "I don't even know who I am anymore. How do you move forward when everything you thought mattered is gone?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "You rebuild, slowly. Start small. Focus on what you can control." I hung up, feeling neither comforted nor encouraged. I was trapped in my mind. Lena's face appeared in every memory, every imagined scenario, mocking me. The office, the apartment we shared. Her smirk when she said, "You're so serious, Mark. Relax a little." Relax? How could I relax when she had destroyed everything I'd worked for? Sleep refused me that night. My mind was a carousel of humiliation, revenge, anger, and despair. I paced my apartment, staring at the walls, the ceiling, the floor, as if some hidden message would appear, some secret path back to dignity. The next day, I tried to eat breakfast, but the food sat heavy in my stomach. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't taste. Every bite reminded me that life had moved on without me. I scrolled through my emails again, hoping for a lifeline, a mistake, an apology, anything, nothing, just notifications, spam, and reminders that I no longer belonged anywhere I had once been secure. Later, Daniel stopped by. I barely heard him enter, too absorbed in my self-loathing, "Mark, you can't stay like this. You need to at least eat," he said firmly, holding 2 sandwiches. "I can't not yet." "I can't deal with the world," I whispered, voice breaking. "Look at me," he commanded gently. I met his eyes and I saw concern, yes, but also an unwavering belief I no longer had in myself. "I know you've been humiliated, betrayed, but hiding won't fix this. You have to think strategically. Not revenge yet, just survival. Observe, learn, prepare. That's how you come back stronger." I nodded silently, though internally I felt nothing but exhaustion. Days blurred into one another. I stopped answering calls. I avoided friends. I pretended to be fine at work-related events I no longer attended. Every time my phone buzzed, I feared it was Lena gloating again. Every reflection showed a man hollowed out by betrayal, haunted by memories that would not fade. Then came the small reminders, things I had forgotten. A photo from our anniversary popped up on social media, a notification from a friend tagging Lena. She looked happy, radiant, completely untouched by guilt or consequence. My hands shook. My teeth clenched. I wanted to delete the world around her, erase her from existence. I typed a message to her. "Why? Explain. Tell me why you did this." I deleted it before sending. My anger couldn't speak to her. Not yet. She didn't deserve my voice. She didn't deserve the satisfaction of knowing I was broken. Daniel called again. "Mark, you've got to focus. You're not helpless. You've survived 7 years in a cutthroat environment. You've done things no one else could. Remember that," I laughed bitterly. 7 years gone. All of it? For what? So she could prove she was smarter than me? Not smarter. Just selfish. But you can turn this. Don't let it break you. Don't give her the power she wants. I sank into the couch, staring at the ceiling. Daniel's words rang true. But the fear, the humiliation, the betrayal, it still clung to me like a second skin.
Yet, in the pit of despair, I felt a flicker.
A spark. I cannot stay a victim forever. That night I lay awake, envisioning scenarios, strategies. How to rebuild. How to regain respect, control, and dignity. The anger that had consumed me became a tool, sharpened with thought. I didn't yet know the plan, but I understood one thing. I would not allow Lena to see me defeated indefinitely. Weeks passed, though time felt distorted. I began noticing patterns. Lena's social media, the messages she sent, the way she interacted with former colleagues. Everything she did was deliberate, performative, and I realized something crucial. She had underestimated me. She thought I would collapse, but I had survived. I had endured humiliation that would have broken most people, and I was still standing. I started small, researching companies, networking discreetly, rekindling old contacts. I didn't want pity or charity. I wanted strategy, leverage, influence. Every email I sent, every phone call I made was calculated, deliberate. I visualized a ladder, each step representing a return to control, respect, and power. Then came the symbolic moment, a letter I had never opened from HR. It contained a small severance package, but more importantly, it listed references from colleagues I had impressed. I read it over and over, realizing that while Lena had laughed at my fall, I still had tools, allies, and credibility left intact. I whispered to myself, almost as a mantra, she thought she destroyed me. She only made me sharper. Daniel stopped by one evening. "You're planning something, aren't you?" he asked, smirking. "You could say that," I replied, "but it's not revenge, not yet. It's preparation. I've learned from this. I know who I am, what I'm capable of, and soon she'll understand what she's lost." He nodded. "Good, let that fire fuel you. Don't let it consume you, though." "I won't," I said. "I've been consumed, and now I control it." I spent the nights planning, analyzing, building a mental map of every connection, every weakness, every opportunity. Lena's laughter haunted me, but it no longer terrified me. It guided me. Every memory of humiliation became a stepping stone. I walked through the city streets at night, imagining confrontations, imagining victories. I rehearsed conversations, observed strangers, gauged reactions. The darkness outside mirrored the storm inside me, yet in that storm clarity emerged. I would not be defeated. I would rise. By the end of the month, I wasn't the same man who had received that HR email. I was sharper, calmer, more aware. I could still feel the sting of betrayal, but it had transformed into strategy. Every slight, Every sneer, every mocking word from Lena fueled me, reminding me of what I needed to do: reclaim my life, my career, my dignity. And in the quiet moments, alone in my apartment, I whispered to the shadows that had haunted me. You laughed when I was fired. You thought I'd crumble. But this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. The first glimmer of transformation had arrived. The journey would be long, and the path uncertain, but for the first time since that terrible day, I could see light breaking through the darkness. I woke with a start, the morning sun cutting through the blinds. Something felt different. My mind was clear, sharp. I remembered everything: Lena's laughter, the firing, the humiliation, but now I had a chance. A second chance. I sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding, mind racing with the possibilities. Is this real? I whispered to myself, rubbing my face. Daniel's voice came to me in memory, echoing advice I hadn't fully understood before. Observe, learn, prepare. I swung my legs over the bed, feet touching the floor. This was no longer about despair. This was about control. I knew what was coming. I knew Lena's cruelty, her selfishness, and her underhanded tactics, and now I could anticipate them. I picked up my phone. Notifications flooded in just as they had before, but this time they didn't matter. I didn't panic. I didn't feel trapped. I could choose my reactions. Good morning, Mark, my secretary Jessica chirped as I walked into the office. Morning, Jessica, I replied calmly, a smile tugging at my lips. Did anything unusual happen while I was gone? She frowned slightly. No, nothing out of the ordinary. But you seem different today. I am, I said, letting the words linger. Different is good. I settled at my desk, reviewing reports with meticulous attention. Every email, every note, every interaction was an opportunity to observe, to learn. I noticed subtle things: who deferred to whom, who whispered behind closed doors, who lingered just a bit too long near my office. Everything mattered now. Later, Daniel called. So you woke up with a plan, huh? I woke up with knowledge, I corrected him. I know what's coming. I know who will betray me, and I know how to respond before it even happens. Impressive. Just don't let it consume you. Revenge isn't everything. It's not revenge, I said sharply. It's preparation, strategy, control. I've spent months powerless. Not anymore. At lunch, I met with a few colleagues I hadn't spoken to much before. I smiled, listened carefully, asked the right questions, offered advice where appropriate. I was building influence quietly, planting seeds that would grow when the time was right. You've changed, Mark, said Tom, one of my peers. More focused, confident. What's your secret? Focus and observation, I replied simply. And learning from past mistakes. Even as I spoke, I scanned the room, noticing Lena's friend, Mia, chatting with a group near the windows. Their whispers and glances were easy to interpret now, simple to read. I filed it away. Everything was data. Everything could be used. Back in my office, I drafted a few strategic emails, laying the groundwork for projects I had only dreamed of tackling before. I was careful, precise, deliberate, each word chosen to assert authority, demonstrate competence, and subtly showcase my growing influence. Jessica knocked lightly. Mark, are you okay? You seem different. Calm, but different is necessary, I said, locking eyes with her. I'm learning to control the narrative, Jessica. Not just for me, but for everyone around me, including you. She nodded, slightly intimidated, slightly inspired. I understand. I'll follow your lead. The rest of the day passed in a blur of calculated moves. I observed, I listened, I made notes. Lena appeared briefly in the office, smiling as she always did, unaware of the storm I had become. She greeted me casually. Morning, Mark. Everything okay? I smiled, neutral, unreadable. Everything's fine, Lena. How about you? Oh, you know. Her voice carried that same light mockery, but I wasn't caught this time. I noted the tone, the subtle inflection, the pattern she always used to manipulate situations. I filed it away mentally. Every interaction was a test, and I had learned to pass without faltering. By the evening, I met Daniel again for coffee. Look at you, he said, shaking his head. You're different. Calm, collected, almost untouchable. I'm learning, I said. Every look, every word, every gesture, predictable once you know the person. Lena, the others, they have habits, weaknesses. I just need to watch and wait. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Patience, huh? That's a change from the old you. I've learned, I replied. Old me, he was too reactive, too emotional. Old me trusted too easily. This version, he calculates, anticipates, and adapts. Nothing slips past him anymore. We sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the cafe around us. The calm was deceptive. I could feel the energy building inside me, the anticipation of reclaiming what was mine, respect, influence, dignity. The next few days were exercises in observation. Every conversation, every meeting, every casual encounter was data. Lena tried subtle manipulations, questions about projects, casual remarks meant to unsettle me, but I responded with neutral, controlled answers. Not flustered, not hurt, just aware. Each small test she threw at me reinforced my confidence. I was learning to see the game, to anticipate moves before they were made. One evening, a message arrived from an old mentor, Charles. Mark, I've heard about your situation. Come by my office tomorrow. We need to talk strategy, I smiled reading the note. Charles had been one of the few people I trusted implicitly, a guide in times of uncertainty. I knew this meeting would cement my plan for reclaiming influence. The next morning, I arrived early. Charles greeted me warmly, but with that sharp gaze that always made me feel simultaneously challenged and supported. Mark, he said, I hear you've been through a storm. And now? Now I observe, I prepare, I act strategically, I said. I know what's coming. I know who will betray me, and I know the steps to ensure they cannot harm me again. He nodded. Good. That mindset will save you more than brute strength ever could. Anticipate, don't react. Control, don't rage. Learn, don't just endure. You've taken the first step toward mastery. I left his office with a renewed sense of purpose. Each interaction, each plan, each observation was a brick in the foundation I was rebuilding. I no longer saw myself as a victim of Lena's cruelty or the office politics. I was a player, and this time I was prepared. At home, I sat alone, reflecting. I still felt the sting of the past, the memory of humiliation, Lena's laughter. But now, it was fuel, not poison. I plotted quietly, not with malice, but with strategy. Every action had purpose, every choice intentional. I whispered to myself, this is my second chance. I will not fail. I will rise. I will reclaim everything. And for the first time since the fall, I felt a surge of something I hadn't in months. Control, focus, power. This was only the beginning. With a start, the morning sun cutting through the blinds. Something felt different. My mind was clear, sharp. I remembered everything, Lena's laughter, the firing, the humiliation, but now I had a chance, a second chance. I sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding, mind racing with the possibilities. Is this real? I whispered to myself, rubbing my face. Daniel's voice came to me in memory, echoing advice I hadn't fully understood before. Observe, learn, prepare. I swung my legs over the bed, feet touching the floor. This was no longer about despair. This was about control. I knew what was coming. I knew Lena's cruelty, her selfishness, and her underhanded tactics. And now I could anticipate them. I picked up my phone. Notifications flooded in, just as they had before, but this time they didn't matter. I didn't panic. I didn't feel trapped. I could choose my reactions. Good morning, Mark, my secretary Jessica chirped as I walked into the office. Morning, Jessica, I replied calmly, a smile tugging at my lips. Did anything unusual happen while I was gone? She frowned slightly. No, nothing out of the ordinary, but you seem different today. I am, I said, letting the words linger. Different is good. I settled at my desk, reviewing reports with meticulous attention. Every email, every note, every interaction was an opportunity to observe, to learn. I noticed subtle things. Who deferred to whom? Who whispered behind closed doors? Who lingered just a bit too long near my office? Everything mattered now. Later, Daniel called. So you woke up with a plan, huh? I woke up with knowledge, I corrected him. I know what's coming. I know who will betray me, and I know how to respond before it even happens. Impressive. Just don't let it consume you. Revenge isn't everything. It's not revenge, I said sharply. It's preparation, strategy, control. I've spent months powerless. Not anymore. At lunch, I met with a few colleagues I hadn't spoken to much before. I smiled, listened carefully, asked the right questions, offered advice where appropriate. I was building influence quietly, planting seeds that would grow when the time was right. "You've changed, Mark," said Tom, one of my peers. "More focused, confident." "What's your secret?" "Focus and observation," I replied simply, "and learning from past mistakes." Even as I spoke, I scanned the room, noticing Lena's friend, Mia, chatting with a group near the windows. Their whispers and glances were easy to interpret now, simple to read. I filed it away. Everything was data. Everything could be used. Back in my office, I drafted a few strategic emails, laying the groundwork for projects I had only dreamed of tackling before. I was careful, precise, deliberate. Each word chosen to assert authority, demonstrate competence, and subtly showcase my growing influence. Jessica knocked lightly. "Mark, are you okay? You seem different." "Calm, but different is necessary," I said, locking eyes with her. "I'm learning to control the narrative, Jessica. Not just for me, but for everyone around me, including you." She nodded, slightly intimidated, slightly inspired. "I understand. I'll follow your lead." The rest of the day passed in a blur of calculated moves. I observed, I listened, I made notes. Lena appeared briefly in the office, smiling as she always did, unaware of the storm I had become. She greeted me casually. "Morning, Mark. Everything okay?" I smiled, neutral, unreadable. "Everything's fine, Lena. How about you?" "Oh, you know." Her voice carried that same light mockery, but I wasn't caught this time. I noted the tone, the subtle inflection, the pattern she always used to manipulate situations. I filed it away mentally. Every interaction was a test, and I had learned to pass without faltering. By the evening, I met Daniel again for coffee. "Look at you," he said, shaking his head. "You're different. Calm, collected, almost untouchable." "I'm learning," I said. "Every look, every word, every gesture, predictable once you know the person. Lena, the others, they have habits, weaknesses. I just need to watch and wait." Daniel raised an eyebrow.
Patience, huh?
"That's a change from the old you." "I've learned," I replied. Old Mehey was too reactive, too emotional. Old me trusted too easily. This version, he calculates, anticipates, and adapts. Nothing slips past him anymore. We sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the cafe around us. The calm was deceptive. I could feel the energy building inside me, the anticipation of reclaiming what was mine, respect, influence, dignity. The next few days were exercises in observation. Every conversation, every meeting, every casual encounter was data. Lena tried subtle manipulations, questions about projects, casual remarks meant to unsettle me, but I responded with neutral, controlled answers. Not flustered, not hurt, just aware. Each small test she threw at me reinforced my confidence. I was learning to see the game, to anticipate moves before they were made. One evening, a message arrived from an old mentor, Charles. "Mark, I've heard about your situation. Come by my office tomorrow. We need to talk strategy," I smiled, reading the note. Charles had been one of the few people I trusted implicitly, a guide in times of uncertainty. I knew this meeting would cement my plan for reclaiming influence. The next morning, I arrived early. Charles greeted me warmly, but with that sharp gaze that always made me feel simultaneously challenged and supported. "Mark," he said, "I hear you've been through a storm. And now?" "Now I observe, I prepare, I act strategically," I said. "I know what's coming. I know who will betray me, and I know the steps to ensure they cannot harm me again." He nodded. "Good. That mindset will save you more than brute strength ever could. Anticipate, don't react. Control, don't rage. Learn, don't just endure. You've taken the first step toward mastery." I left his office with a renewed sense of purpose. Each interaction, each plan, each observation was a brick in the foundation I was rebuilding. I no longer saw myself as a victim of Lena's cruelty or the office politics. I was a player, and this time I was prepared. At home, I sat alone, reflecting. I still felt the sting of the past, the memory of humiliation, Lena's laughter. But now it was fuel, not poison. I plotted quietly, not with malice, but with strategy. Every action had purpose, every choice intentional. I whispered to myself, "This is my second chance. I will not fail. I will rise. I will reclaim everything." And for the first time since the fall, I felt a surge of something I hadn't in months. Control, focus, power. This was only the beginning. I arrived at the office earlier than usual, the crisp morning air filling my lungs. Everything felt different. I wasn't the same man who had been blindsided by Lena's betrayal. I carried the weight of memory, but with it, an edge, a clarity I had never possessed. "Morning, Mark," Jessica said as I walked in. Her tone held curiosity, respect, and something unspoken. "Morning," I replied, smiling faintly. "Anything urgent?" "Nothing, just the usual emails. But you seem focused, determined." "I am," I said, letting the word linger. Determination beats chaos every time. I settled at my desk, reviewing reports. Every line, every detail was an opportunity. Mistakes from the past wouldn't repeat themselves. I noticed subtle signs of weakness in my rivals, including Lena's allies, and I stored them mentally. By mid-morning, Lena appeared at the doorway. She looked impeccable, as always, smiling that practiced smile. "Mark, did you see the new client proposal? I thought we could discuss it together," she said. Her words dripped with familiarity, but I caught the undertone, an attempt to assert control, to remind me of her influence. "I've reviewed it already," I replied evenly. "Everything seems in order, but I'd like your notes for reference." Her eyes flickered. She expected surprise, hesitation. I offered neither. I was calm, detached, observant. Later, I met with Daniel in the break room. "You're handling her well," he said. "I can see she's frustrated. She used to have you wrapped around her finger." "Used to," I corrected. "Now I watch, I listen, I calculate. She won't catch me off guard again," Daniel nodded. "I like this version of you. Calm, measured, strategic. You're growing. Growth requires observation," I said. "And patience. Every move matters." By lunchtime, I had subtly positioned myself to handle a minor conflict between colleagues. Two teammates were at odds over project assignments. Normally, I might have avoided the situation, but today I intervened. "Let's hear both sides," I said, gesturing for them to sit. "I want clarity before decisions are made." As they spoke, I listened carefully, noting tendencies, biases, and hidden motives. I offered solutions that balanced fairness with subtle positioning, ensuring my influence was recognized without seeming domineering. By the time the discussion ended, both colleagues looked at me with a new respect. "You handled that well," Daniel remarked when I returned to my desk. "I observe, I act strategically," I said. "The smallest interactions often reveal the largest opportunities." The afternoon brought Lena back into my orbit. She attempted a casual conversation near the printers, leaning slightly, her tone light. "Busy day?" she asked, tilting her head. "Productive," I replied. "I find the quieter moments are where I learn the most." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I could see the calculation behind it. She tested me, expecting annoyance, confusion, or defensiveness. She found none. Meanwhile, a subtle rival, Alex, had begun circulating doubts about my competence in meetings. He whispered critiques, questioned my decisions, small, covert, but enough to unsettle less experienced colleagues. I observed. I noted every word, every hesitation, every shift in body language. At the next meeting, Alex spoke first. "I'm concerned about the recent client assignment." Mark might have overlooked, I held up a hand. "Actually, Alex, I reviewed that assignment thoroughly. I also reviewed your notes from last quarter, and I noticed some discrepancies in your reports. Let's correct those first before we discuss my work." A ripple of surprise ran through the room. Alex's face tightened. He hadn't anticipated my preparedness, my foresight. I continued calmly, deliberately. "It's important we all maintain accuracy. Mistakes can be costly. Collaboration requires transparency." The room nodded, colleagues now viewing me with subtle awe. Alex had exposed his own weaknesses without realizing I was observing, recording, and ready to leverage them later. During a brief break, Jessica approached me. "You're different," she said softly. "More confident, more in control." "I learned the hard way," I said. "Control isn't given. It's taken step by step." The rest of the afternoon was spent in careful observation. I reviewed reports, assessed team dynamics, and subtly tested Lena's reactions. She attempted another manipulation, commenting casually about an upcoming client dinner, hinting at needing my support in a social setting. I responded neutrally. "Of course," I said, smiling faintly. "I'll ensure everything goes smoothly. I'm sure your plans are excellent." She left the room slightly deflated. Her influence was waning. She didn't realize it yet. I spent the late afternoon consolidating my notes. Every interaction, every subtle test, every whisper in the hallway became data. I mapped relationships, anticipated behaviors, and noted patterns. My power grew quietly, methodically, but unmistakably. Daniel joined me again. "Mark, you're playing the long game." "I can see it. Everyone else, they don't even realize what's happening." "Exactly," I said. "They operate in the moment. I operate with foresight. By the time they act, I've already accounted for it." Later, Lena tried one last small test. She dropped a file on my desk, deliberately placed for me to notice. "Thought you might want to review this," she said, smiling faintly. I glanced at it, noting minor errors she likely hoped I'd overlook or react to. I corrected them silently, leaving a note acknowledging the work without any emotion. She left, clearly expecting an effect she didn't get. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. Every small confrontation, every test was reinforcing a new reality. I was no longer vulnerable. I was growing influence, gaining respect, and establishing control. Even Alex approached me later, ostensibly friendly but with subtle condescension. "Mark, I hope I'm not stepping on any toes," he said, smirking slightly. "Alex," I replied, "I appreciate your input as always. Let's ensure our work aligns. Accuracy benefits everyone." He hesitated, realizing that the power dynamics had shifted. He couldn't undermine me as he had intended. By evening, the office had quieted. I sat alone for a moment, reflecting. The fire of betrayal still burned faintly, but now it fueled me, not paralyzed me. Every small victory, every observation, every calculated move was preparing me for larger confrontations. I had transformed from reactive to proactive. I was no longer at the mercy of colleagues or of Lena. Jessica peeked in one last time. "You seem different," she said, curiosity mixing with admiration. "I am," I said quietly. "I've learned that control begins within. If I master myself, I can master everything else." As I left the office, the city lights stretching before me, I felt a surge of anticipation. Every encounter, every whispered plan, every subtle betrayal was another piece of the game, and I was no longer a pawn. I was a player, and soon I would dictate the rules. Walking home, I rehearsed the steps in my mind. Strategic moves, subtle observations, calculated responses. I no longer feared surprise. I expected it, anticipated it, and prepared to turn it to my advantage. The ladder wasn't climbed in a day, but every step I took now was deliberate, and deliberate steps led to power. And for the first time in months, I felt the thrill of possibility. I was climbing. I walked into the boardroom, the polished floor reflecting the steady confidence I now carried. Lena's eyes flicked toward me, her mouth opening as if she wanted to protest, but no words came. She knew the tables had turned. "Good morning," I said, my tone calm but commanding. "Let's start with the quarterly report. I want clarity on every project, every client, every deliverable." A few colleagues exchanged glances. They had seen the transformation. They respected it. Some nodded silently, understanding the subtle shift in authority. Lena's voice finally broke the silence. "Mark, can we talk privately?" "I think the room is the best place for transparency," I replied evenly. "There's nothing private left between us. Actions are public. Consequences are unavoidable." Her shoulders slumped, the arrogance she once carried now replaced with unease. She looked at the secondary antagonist, Alex, who avoided my gaze entirely, fidgeting nervously with his pen. "Mark, Lena began, but I raised a hand. "No explanations necessary," I said firmly. "I've observed, I've calculated, and I've acted. Your manipulations, your attempts at influence, they're all exposed." Alex shifted in his seat. "Mark, perhaps we can discuss—" "Alex," I said, eyes locking with his. "All discussion now serves only to clarify the reality. Lies have no place here and deception has consequences. You've learned that already." He swallowed hard. I watched the realization dawn on him. His schemes, his attempts to manipulate me, were now transparent to everyone. The weight of exposure hung heavy, and I let the silence do its work. I turned to the team, voice steady. "Colleagues, friends, I want to acknowledge the recent tensions. The actions of a few threatened our cohesion, but transparency, honesty, and accountability always prevail. That is the environment I uphold." Some murmured agreement. A few who had hesitated in the past nodded subtly, validation settling in. Lena's voice was smaller now, almost pleading. "Mark, you don't need to be so harsh." "Harsh?" I asked, tilting my head. I'm precise. I'm fair. I hold no anger here, only awareness. Awareness of actions and their outcomes. That is justice! Her eyes darted toward the door, calculating escape or retreat. None would save her from the exposure now. She understood power had shifted irrevocably. I continued. I hope everyone observes carefully. Influence is not taken, it is earned. Respect is not demanded. It is demonstrated through integrity and consistency. A few colleagues nodded, some even taking notes. Alex looked down at his hands, silently counting the cost of his overreach. Later, I scheduled a brief one-on-one with Lena, though not to coddle or negotiate. I needed the final clarity, the acknowledgement of her defeat. Lena, I began as she entered, her face pale. Let's be concise. Your attempts to manipulate colleagues, spread misinformation, and influence outcomes have failed. You understand that, yes? Yes, she whispered, barely audible. I see that now. That's correct, I said. Your power in this office, your influence over decisions, it's gone. You have no leverage here, no authority to regain. The truth is clear to everyone. Tears welled up in her eyes, unbidden, revealing vulnerability she had long hidden. Mark won't know, I said softly but firmly. No words can undo the consequences of your actions. I'm not here to humiliate you unnecessarily. You created this reality. You face it fully now. She nodded, defeated. The years of arrogance, manipulation, and entitlement had evaporated under the weight of accountability. Alex came in next, hesitant, his posture cautious. Mark, I thought I could... You thought incorrectly, I said, meeting his gaze with calm precision. Every subtle action, every attempt to undermine me has been observed and countered. Your influence, your scheming, it's exposed. You're a cautionary example now. He opened his mouth, then closed it. No defense remained. Even he knew the game had changed irreversibly. The day continued with meetings and minor adjustments, but the undercurrent had shifted. Colleagues treated me differently now, not out of fear, but respect. The awareness of foresight, strategic mastery, and composed authority carried weight heavier than any previous hierarchy. Later, Daniel approached me quietly. Mark, everyone's been watching. Lena, Alex, they've realized nothing can touch you now. They can't regain control. I've simply ensured that actions align with consequences, I said. Power is temporary without awareness and integrity. They lacked both, he nodded, admiration clear. And you've transformed completely. I've never seen someone handle betrayal with such precision. It's not about handling betrayal, I said. It's about learning from it, understanding the dynamics, and acting deliberately. That's mastery. Even as the day ended, Lena and Alex lingered on the periphery, aware of their diminished roles. I could feel their attempts at subtle influence evaporate with every glance they stole, every interaction they hesitated to make. I returned to my office, reviewing emails, planning future projects, and noting interactions that required subtle correction or reinforcement. I reflected quietly on the journey, from shock and despair to calculated strategy and command. Betrayal had been my teacher. Observation and action had been my instruments. A message appeared on my phone from Daniel. Even your rivals are acknowledging your authority now. They can't manipulate or intimidate you anymore. I smiled faintly. No, they can't. They've learned the hard way that awareness and preparation are superior to deceit. Lena attempted one last outreach via email, a mix of apology and veiled threat. I read it carefully, noting the desperation and subtle self-interest threaded throughout. Then I drafted a measured reply, public in distribution to a few key colleagues. Acknowledgement of the attempt, factual correction, and subtle exposure of manipulative intent. I sent it knowing it would reinforce her powerless position. By evening, the office atmosphere had shifted entirely. I walked past Lena's desk. She avoided my gaze. Alex lingered near the exit, hesitant. The subtle but unmistakable air of authority surrounded me. Every observer knew I was in command, not through force, but through strategy, foresight, and composure. I paused at the window, looking at the city lights. The journey from humiliation to mastery had been painful but necessary. Every betrayal, every failed manipulation, every moment of despair had contributed to the precise, strategic self I had become. Daniel called as I prepared to leave. Mark, your transformation is complete. They've all seen it, the power, the composure, the authority. Yes, I said quietly, almost to myself. They've learned, I've grown, and nothing unearned will ever sway me again. Betrayal revealed the rules. Mastery ensures they are followed. Walking out into the night, the cool air felt like liberation. I was no longer the man they had underestimated, the one who had crumbled under shock, betrayal, and humiliation. I was steady, prepared, and fully in control. The path ahead was clear. Strategic influence, emotional mastery, and awareness ensured that I would not be shaken, manipulated, or undermined again. The throne was mine, not taken by force, but earned through observation, action, and unwavering resolve. And for the first time in months, I felt a profound sense of peace, a satisfaction deeper than revenge. Justice had been served, karma had unfolded naturally, and I stood fully in command of my destiny. Betrayal had forged a master, and the world now acknowledged it. I woke before sunrise, the city still dark beneath the haze of morning fog. The quiet was different now, not empty or hollow like before, but deliberate, full of purpose. I sipped my coffee and let my thoughts wander over the months that had reshaped me. Betrayal had been a crucible, and I had emerged tempered, strategic, unshakable. A soft knock interrupted my reflection. I looked up to see Anna standing in the doorway, her expression calm, confident, and honest in a way Lena never could be. "Morning," she said, holding a folder. "I thought you might want to review these before the meeting." I smiled, feeling the ease that had been absent for so long. "Thank you, Anna, I appreciate it. You've been a steady presence through all this." She set the folder down, leaning slightly against the doorframe. "You've done the hard work. I've just been here to support." "Support," I echoed. "Yes, someone I can trust. Not someone playing games or pretending to care while calculating advantage." Her eyes softened, but there was no flinching, no hesitation. Just honesty, just presence. And for the first time in years, I realized how rare that was, and how necessary. The phone buzzed, a reminder of the meeting with the board and family. I glanced at it, noting the messages from colleagues affirming my authority. Even Lena's last attempt to reach out had fallen flat, her carefully crafted words of apology and thin threats now meaningless. I hadn't replied, and I never would. Anna tilted her head. "You've changed completely, and they've noticed." "I've had to," I said simply. "I can't let betrayal dictate my life anymore. I can't allow manipulation, lies, or selfish ambition to control my path." She nodded. "And you won't. That's why I trust you. Not because you're strong, but because you've learned to be steady, deliberate." I took a deep breath. Steady, deliberate. Yes, and aware. Every connection, every decision, every alliance now moves under scrutiny. That's control. That's power. Control without arrogance, Anna said. "You found the balance." I let the comment linger. The truth was, it had taken months of planning, observation, and deliberate emotional recalibration to reach this point. There had been moments of doubt, moments of rage, moments when I questioned whether reclaiming my dignity was worth the effort. But each calculated step had brought me closer to mastery over the chaos Lena had left behind. The elevator chimed. We descended together, the quiet hum of the cabin mirroring the calm I had cultivated internally. Outside, the city was waking, unaware of the private victories unfolding within a small glass building at its heart. In the boardroom, the tension that had once gripped my chest was gone. Lena was there, sitting stiffly, her gaze flitting nervously between me and the team. Alex lingered at the far end, shoulders tight, still adjusting to the exposure of his previous schemes. I greeted everyone, my voice steady, warm, but undeniably commanding. "Good morning, everyone. Let's begin." Lena leaned forward slightly. "Mark, perhaps we could—" "No," I interrupted softly, the calm masking the steel beneath. "We've covered every manipulation, every misstep, and every falsehood. Today we focus on facts, outcomes, and strategy. Not the past," she faltered, realizing the past no longer held power over me. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I addressed the room. "Colleagues, family, I've learned something crucial. Betrayal, disappointment, even humiliation can destroy a person, but only if they allow it." I refused to be destroyed. Instead, I chose awareness, preparation, and deliberate action. That is the path to true control and influence. A few nods, a quiet murmur of agreement. I saw it in their eyes, the acknowledgement that I had navigated not just the office politics, but the personal betrayals, and emerged in full command. Lena tried one last reach. "Mark, can we resolve things?" For the sake of appearances, I met her gaze evenly. Appearances are meaningless when integrity is absent. Actions have consequences, and yours have already spoken louder than words ever could. There is nothing left to resolve, she lowered her eyes. Her attempts at guilt, at leverage, fell flat. She understood now fully that she had no control, no influence, no path back. Alex tried to interject. Mark, perhaps you can reflect, I said evenly. And you should. That is all that remains. Your overreach has been observed, exposed, and addressed. Every action you took against me now serves as a cautionary example. Take note of that. The meeting proceeded with focus and clarity, each agenda item addressed efficiently. I noticed subtle glances, the quiet acknowledgement of my transformation. No one questioned my decisions. No one doubted my authority. For the first time, I realized the full weight of respect born from competence, strategy, and unwavering composure. Afterward, I walked through the office floor, observing interactions, listening to conversations, noting minor adjustments necessary to maintain the environment of integrity I had cultivated. Lena's attempts to maneuver, subtle or overt, were met with polite but firm resistance from others who had long recognized my judgment and foresight. Later, alone in my office, Anna joined me with 2 cups of coffee. She handed me one. You've done more than reclaim authority, she said quietly. You've redefined it. I took a sip, letting the warmth anchor me. Reclaiming authority was never enough. I needed mastery. Over myself, my emotions, my decisions, and the environment around me. Every betrayal, every failed manipulation, every humiliation, each was a lesson in precision and foresight. Anna smiled. And now the final step, personal life. You've mastered your career and influence. You've ensured integrity in every professional relationship. What about yourself? I leaned back, considering. I've learned to trust again, to value honesty, loyalty, and respect. Not everyone deserves it, but the right people do. Her eyes lit up. And you found her? Yes, I said simply. Someone who embodies everything I fought to protect. Integrity, trust, and genuine connection. She is my partner, my ally, not an obstacle, not a shadow of past betrayal. Someone I can build a life with fully without hesitation. Anna nodded, understanding. Then everything aligns. You're no longer defined by betrayal, only by mastery. The next day, I walked into the private ceremony with her by my side. The city outside sparkled in the afternoon sun, reflecting a new life unfolding. Lena was present, reluctantly invited by family, and Alex lingered near the edges. I noticed their discomfort but ignored it, focused entirely on the life I was stepping into. My family watched, acknowledging the authority and stability I now carried. Friends and colleagues who had witnessed my transformation smiled, understanding that the man before them was no longer the one who had crumbled under humiliation, who had been mocked and underestimated. During the vows, I held her hands. Feeling the weight and the promise of a life built on trust and honesty, I promised to walk forward with integrity, respect, and love. Together we build a life not defined by the past, but by deliberate choice, shared values, and mutual support. Her eyes glistened, her smile steady, confident, unwavering. The contrast to the pain and deceit I had endured before was stark, almost poetic. After the ceremony at the reception, subtle whispers circulated. Lena had attempted to gain favor, but her efforts fell flat. Alex avoided confrontation entirely. The social and familial acknowledgement of my authority, judgment, and foresight was undeniable. Karma had unfolded subtly but completely. I leaned toward Anna, quietly. Every connection, every choice, every outcome, I've learned to manage it. Not with arrogance, but with awareness and deliberate action. Betrayal taught me control. Observation taught me strategy. Experience taught me patience, she smiled. And now life is yours fully. Yes, I said softly. Fully. And I intend to honor that every day. Later, alone for a moment, I reflected on the journey. From shock, humiliation, and despair to mastery, independence, and emotional maturity. I had reclaimed everything: career, influence, family respect, and the ability to love genuinely without compromise. The past, with all its treachery and pain, now served only as a foundation for strength. And as the evening ended, I held her hand, looked around at the faces that mattered, and realized the truth. I was no longer defined by what had been taken from me. I was defined by what I had claimed, wisdom, power, independence, and a life guided by foresight and trust. Betrayal had been a crucible. Patience, strategy, and emotional mastery had forged a life unshakable. And for the first time in years, I smiled freely, fully, completely reborn.